We're here.
We are here. Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast. And today we have a guest that I've wanted to get on for a while now. Zoe has kindly offered to come on the pod. And we're going to be talking about her journey as a competitor. So she's been very successful in the sport of bodybuilding. And now she's going down the route of more a hobby building approach. So it's going to be super cool to speak to you, Zoe, about that transition and where you're at currently and what your ambitions are for the future. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I'd be interested actually to know where it all began for you, bodybuilding.
Oh God, so I've always been a pretty avid gym goer because I have a dance background. I've trained to be a dancer, kind of classically trained in ballet, tap, modern street dance, done that since I was 5 years old. So kind of the gym came hand in hand with that throughout kind of sixth form and then my kind of 20s. Got to about 2019 and a friend of mine actually, he ended up coaching me, and I approached him and I said, look, I'd like to be coached, I'd like to take this a little bit further, and he was the one that suggested doing bikini, and that was it. Kind of history started. So yeah.
Like Steff, because Steff also came from a dance background.
Amazing.
It's quite a sort of, I guess you're used to being up on stage and you're used to exposing yourself, as it were. So I guess it's quite a nice transition.
100%. And because I'm a dance teacher now, I don't dance professionally kind of anymore. Being up on stage and doing something that is so different to dancing, but at the same time so the same, is amazing. And I will never forget the first time I went on stage in a pair of heels and I was like, this is home. Like, I love it so much.
I've got such a similar background to you, Zoe, in terms of how I came into it. But I think what struck me, it was sort of like a light bulb moment. It was blending that your love for training, but then from vocationally being a trained dancer. If you've been classically trained like you have, mechanically you just know how to switch on certain muscles at certain times, and the two just sort of intersect like so well. And then, of course, you've got the stage element of it, which I suppose your advantage is having had that experience doing it before in one way or another. And I've always been really grateful for that, because it's something you can't teach sometimes. It's really difficult to teach that stage element of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think almost having that like character switch on as soon as you hit the stage is something that I know a lot of people struggle with, but as a dancer, it came quite easily to me, which I think massively helped with things like posing and presentation and stuff like that. And that's something that I've always been kind of told that I'm very good at.
Yeah.
So,
you can continue your love through dance, but like Steff said, with training, you can then put the two together and then be good at something else as well.
Yeah, 100%.
What's it like teaching children and seeing them flourish through dancing?
Do you know what? That is the best part of the job. 100%. I absolutely adore what I do. It is very, very difficult being on prep and being a dance teacher. Like, I was still teaching like 2 days out, and there was a couple of times I was like, I am going to pass out in front of these kids, and this is so terrible. Like, the room is like spinning and they're like, Zoe. I'm like, guys, we're just going to have a quiet moment, please. But yeah, honestly,
I'm hungry.
Absolutely love it. And it's nice as well to see, like, we do a big school show every year, and you know, it's nice for me to be kind of at the front watching them, and then also to be able to, as myself, have my time up on stage, but it'd be so different and away from what I do.
Yeah, for sure. How did your family and people around you find it when you first went into a prep?
To be fair, my family were really supportive of it. I don't think they understood. I think is kind of a big thing amongst competitors and families, is that they will always support whatever you do. Like, my parents are amazing, but they don't necessarily understand what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, you know. And I came off stage for the first time, and the first thing my mum said to me was, so I've got pie in the fridge. We're going to sit and have a nice family dinner. It was hilarious. She just wanted to feed me, because she just sees the hunger side of it and the grumpiness. And you know, and the last competitive season I had, me and George were living together and I wasn't at home, and my mum was like, I could not have been happier that you were not here.
I think when they see that your body transform so much in front of their eyes every day, it's only normal for your parents to be concerned about, is this the right thing for my child to do?
Yeah, 100%. I think they worry about the health element of it.
Yeah, for sure. I bet you get it as well, Steff, with coaching clients. It's quite hard sometimes for people to get people to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, because in essence you're sort of controlled starvation mode, and it's like, why would you want to do that to yourself? But there's so much that comes from the sport that's a positive.
Yeah, masses. And I think I echo that, because I think I've spoken on pods with you, Sarah, before. Like my parents were, well, my mum in particular was really just not on side with this type of approach to anything. I think she just saw it as a really extreme way of doing something with your body, whereas she's been so used to, probably like you, Zoe, seeing me dance and love it and be enthused by it and have so much energy all the time.
Yeah.
But the contest prep and the actual application of that is complete opposite. It's like you're drained and you're very like, you're really trying to preserve energy at points to get to that finish line, to then get on stage. It's so different. And so, yeah, it's like what you just said there, Sarah, like, especially with first timers, you're trying to explain why they feel certain ways at certain points throughout the prep and what the reasonings are behind that. And that most of the time it is normal. It's not that crazy functions in the body are snapping down. It's just that you're trying to very carefully manage your output versus input to get the desired look of the frame, and that can then relate to lots of things like needing a lot more sleep and not wanting to do as much.
It's crazy. How did you find prepping for the first time, Zoe? Did you find it okay, or?
I think it was difficult. My first prep was the hardest of them all. My calories were very, very low. Expenditure was very, very high. Obviously still working through that as well was really challenging. And then the next prep was a lot easier. George was my partner, was my coach, so that helped hugely. We lived together at this point. The support system was a lot better, like more understood. Do you know what I mean? If I went to my mum or my dad and cried about how tired and hungry I was, they just wouldn't understand, whereas he gets it. So the first time definitely was very difficult on kind of melee elements.
Yeah, for sure. Did you and George meet through bodybuilding?
Yeah, well, kinda. We followed each other kind of because of the coaches and stuff that we were with, and seeing each other on Instagram and stuff like that, and then it kind of kindled from there. And it's been a really great journey since.
Yeah, I must admit, being with Matt now, who bodybuilds, like I've said to Steff before, it makes it so much easier that they understand exactly what you're going through, as it were. And it's just like simple things, they just get it and you don't need to say anything. Whereas when you're with someone that doesn't compete, it's quite hard sometimes to communicate how you're feeling and what goes into a prep.
100%. And I mean, George specializes with females and he's amazing on that side of things, so just to have someone with like that kind of knowledge is amazing, and to have that 24/7 as well, like a lot of people would never get that, so that was huge.
Yeah, even things like condition checks and stuff, like you've said, with Andrew helping you with that, you're like, does this look okay? How do I look here? Am I changing? And they can offer that insight.
100%. Yeah, I was thinking about what you just said there, Zoe, in relation to taking calories really low and cardio and expenditure really high, and that being something that a lot of first timers, you mentioned obviously your first prep was really difficult, and I work with a ton of first timers through their competition seasons over the years, and it never fails. Well, it doesn't surprise me, but I always know that first one for any competitor, if they're with me for a length of time, is always going to be the most challenging. You've just never ever put your body in a position where you've had to do that much and had to sustain the same sorts of foods, the same macronutrient intakes for such a long time. And I don't know what your low was, but everyone's low is like slightly different. And I'm like asking the question so tentatively. You know what I mean? Because there's like that kind of, well, what is too low in our industry? And you get some crazy horror stories and you freak out when you hear them. And then, but it's so hard, that first one. You're just teaching your body to do something it's never done before.
Yeah. You've just never been in that condition. You've never been in that environment. You've never had to do the process. So, in turn, it is hard. And coming off the back of it was even bloody harder.
Yeah.
Crazy post show. I mean, it's a mind warp. The first one you do, when food's suddenly available, as it were, it's like, I don't know what to do with all of this. Like the thoughts, the feelings, the body's crying out for more food. You're never satiated, and you just don't know what to do.
Yeah, 100%. So my reverse out was absolutely horrific. I ended up literally having hormones in the gutter for about 6 months, and it got to the point where I was having like panic attacks and stuff because I just was never ever full. Like, doesn't matter what I eat, was never full. I was at the point that like my skin started to hurt, and like it was utterly bizarre. And I remember, I think it was about 6 months or something like that post show, and I just turned around to George and I was like, I don't know what's going on here, like I can't do this. And that's when he ended up taking the reins and worked really, really hard with me to regain kind of hormonal health. And it was a really long and hard process. And I never thought that it would be kind of like 9 to 10 months post my first show still fixing things. Like, that was ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And repairing that relationship with food, like after the first show, it's just such a mind warp. You just don't really know what to do with yourself and what to do with food. And like you say, you're never feeling full, you never feel fully satiated. And for that to extend over like 9 months, that's such a long time.
100%. So when I came off the back of my prep, my calories were still really low, and they were for kind of a very long time, which is not kind of how my body reacts to things. Like, so the last prep I had, we literally came off the back, and we, funnily enough, went on holiday the day after I won the overall. We literally flew out to Santorini like the day afterwards, and we just whacked my food straight up to kind of what satiated me, and I haven't had a problem since. And this reverse has been the best I've ever had. You know, and it's just how people's body reacts. But at the same time, if you're a first timer, you're never going to know that. Do you know what I mean? It takes these learning curves to be able to understand what your body needs, how it works, what's going to work best for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that there's so much weight on what you've just said there. There's this kind of, I talk about the struggle between the body and what the mind wants. Post show, what your body wants is you to get back to your maintenance as quickly as possible, to get body fat back on the frame, to get your hormones back up to some kind of functioning, happy place where they can start to level out and find homeostasis again. And in theory, if you're working with a coach, especially for females, an ideal scenario is to get you back up there as quickly as possible so that you can just forgo a lot of those horrible issues around choice and never feeling full, and you know, the kind of ebbs and flows that goes with it. And then the opposite side is of course the first timer wanting to hold on to that crazy length of time that they've seen this body change and keep lean, but we can't hold on to it for too long. But it's managing the outfall of the psychological loss of seeing your body that lean. That's where people struggle, I think. Body wants to get back up there, and we should, but a lot of people don't want to give up the lean feeling yet. And that's where like problems can arise there, for sure.
And actually, funny enough, one of my really good friends, she's just had her first season. She did really well, and I spoke to her in the gym the other day, and she was having a really down day, and she was saying, you know, I'm struggling post show. And she said exactly the same thing. It's like, you've never seen your body that lean before, and you've seen it and it's amazing, and now 6 weeks later, you know, you're not looking your best anymore, and letting go of that feeling is so difficult. And I just said to her, I said, ultimately, you're gonna, in 6 months time, look back at your stage photos, or look back at you, say, in your gym clothes, stage lean, and go, oh my God, I am tiny. Like, and appreciate how you look now, you know. And
that's huge as well, because it's like a switch of mindset from, and it takes a while to get there, but it's that switch of mindset from I've got really lean, I'm super, you know, like I'm the tightest and the most ripped I've ever been, to then I'm strong as hell, I'm full, I can eat post-workout, and I know I'm fueling my gains, and all those sorts of things that change and shift. But it takes that good 6 months post-show, I think, for any competitor, especially at the first of their journey, to drop that lean and get back to strong, powerful, badass. You know what I mean? It's hard.
I think that's what bodybuilding is about. It's like, especially as a female, it's like, I want to be wham.
Totally.
I want to feel like great in the gym. And actually, like, I prefer my body with a little bit of body fat on it. I feel a lot better, but it's taken me a long time to be able to train my brain to enjoy how I look, and, you know, and enjoy the process, and be able to enjoy food, and, you know, not miss out on things, and not say no to the Nando's midweek or something. Do you know what I mean? And it's just being kind to yourself as well, and say you don't need to diet all year round. Like, don't be ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
No, and there's just like, I mean, Sarah, you probably think the same as well, but can count on one hand friends of mine or even competitors in the industry who retain that kind of look throughout. And I'm sure they wouldn't even mind. I know I'm thinking of one person in my head, but she wouldn't mind me saying this, but she will openly say, I'm not balanced. You know, like, my lifestyle, the way I like to look, the way I like to live my lifestyle is like this. But she's in the gym every day. She's prepping all year long, you know, in the sense of she's tracking her food, she's Tupperwaring, she's so institutionalized to that lifestyle, and that's her thing, and she loves it, and she's an amazing person, and I wouldn't, you know, change her for the world. But that is very, very unique. You know, not everyone is like that. And so I think we often kind of compare ourselves, don't we, all the time to people on Instagram, like, how do they always look like that? How do they always look like that?
Yeah,
for sure.
It's not real life. It's, you know, it's a small percent. And a lot of those people that you're following, it's their job.
Yeah. And this is such a relevant point. You know, I don't think people sometimes realize that actually, you know, their life is structured to be like that, and they're doing, their physique is what they're marketing, you know, their business on. And it's a very different ball game to, you know, us guys are working full time and we're prepping at the same time, we're competing at the same time. Like you said earlier, Zoe, you know, I think people go into a prep and they don't realize to work full time at the same time as that, it's a lot.
Really difficult. Yeah,
it's really hard. You know, there's certain points when I was working full time at the leisure centre, I think I need to go and sit in a cupboard on my own, because I just can't take this. You know, the normal day-to-day stuff becomes so much harder, especially at the tail end of a prep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that lack of understanding around you really does take its toll at times.
Yeah, because that's exactly it. It's something you do. It's not like your whole life. So you're trying to fit that into effectively a full life already of stuff. And then you're trying to slot this thing that suddenly takes up like your whole life into the same thing. And people then wonder why they're struggling so much. And you're like, because you've never done what you normally do on a day-to-day basis, and then added in getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do your cardio, prepping all your food, not being able to then stop straight after work because you've got to get straight into the gym. Perhaps your lunch break has to be taken up with a walk now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot. So it's sometimes
like a whole nother day on top of your normal day, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like, you get kind of it, like you said about the people that stay very lean year round and are very regimented with what they do. You know, you kind of do have two sides of the story, and people that are like that and enjoy and can live their lives like that generally tend to be people that are bodybuild for a living or are coaches, you know, and as you said, like, their image is who they are and what their business is. And then you have people that do this because they genuinely love bodybuilding, they love the stage, they love pushing their bodies to a limit. And like, for me, it was the challenge of juggling everything, you know, it was the mental challenge, it was the physical challenge. And like, I'm so proud of myself for being able to juggle my business and teaching and dancing and being able to prep at the same time. Like, that to me was a bigger achievement than any medal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as well, when you're successful in the sport, Steff and I talk about this a lot, you know, you have that pinnacle, and for you, like winning the overall as well, a massive success. And then it's like, again, that post show, you're dealing with these thoughts of, you know, where do I go from here? Can it get better than that? Do I compete again? There's lots of things that go through your mind. And I'm sure you had those thoughts when you came off the back of that.
Yeah, of course. So we actually sat down and had a discussion about kind of where I wanted to go from there. I had originally planned to do the PCA finals at the end of the year, but actually I just decided it was time for me to take a bit of a step back. George was, like, my partner was prepping. I kind of thought, one, it's his time to shine. I've had my chance, you know. And it is very hard to be two people dieting that hard at the same time. You know, I was very lucky that he was my support network and had the energy to support me. And it's been really nice for me to have the energy to support him as well this time. And business is really busy and it's booming now. And there's just multiple different factors within my life that need my energy and time now more than ever. And the stage will always be there. It doesn't matter when I want to go back to it, you know, but for now I've got bills to pay, you know, I've got a life to live, and moving away and moving into that hobby builder kind of term has actually been a huge weight off my shoulders in terms of kind of stress and life and whatnot. So
yeah, I think the hobby building as well, it's sort of becoming a little bit of a thing now. A lot more people will reference it, and it's quite a nice way to put it, because you're still having the discipline of a bodybuilder, but I think it's more that approach of a bit more intuitive eating, and like you say, midweek Nando's or things that come up, you can actually do those, but you still train, you still track your food some of the time, and things like that. Is that how you sort of approach it?
Yeah, 100%. So some days I track, some days I use like chronometer or something to track, and then other days I will not track a single thing. I will weigh things just to make sure that kind of like, especially like my carb and fat sources, just to make sure that, you know, I'm eating enough or not too much. But in a general sense, I feel like when you've been doing this long enough, like, you know what's good for you, you know what's bad, like not bad for you, but you know what you should be eating in moderation, you know kind of what you should be, how many meals you should be eating, and what that consists of. And it's not hard to kind of take a good guess at it. And then if you get kind of, I don't know, 3 weeks down the line and you think, oh, maybe I should be eating a bit more, I should be eating a bit less, you know, you just jump on MyFitnessPal and see how you go. And I think that for me has been another massive great big relief, because I can walk out the house and kind of go, oh, I haven't prepped like 4 meals for the day, like I can just go to Tesco's, you know, and that's been huge. So
yeah, I remember George saying actually part of the reason for going on holiday after you won the overall was to restore that balance, and for you to be in a different environment, to go, okay, so let's eat to satiety and have some different menu choices and different cuisine that you maybe wouldn't have, but don't need to go overboard, but you can enjoy some palate experiences together.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that was another massive learning curve, is being able to trust yourself around food. Like we were at buffets, we were at restaurants and stuff, and there was not a single day within those 10 days that I was on holiday that I didn't eat what I wanted to, but I never overate throughout the whole holiday, because I hands down trusted myself and said to myself, I kept on saying, you need to learn to trust yourself, to be around food, to train how you want, you know, and trust yourself with that. And it was a massive great big tool that was put away in the box that I never thought I'd have. You know, you asked me 2 years ago if I'd be able to like have weeks and weeks without tracking it, I would have been like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I can feel you.
Yeah, but now I'm like, no, it's okay.
I remember my first year as a bodybuilder, Christmas, I got my mum to weigh and measure my Christmas dinner, and I then after that day I was like, I'm never ever doing that again. And I have a week off at Christmas where I don't weigh myself, I don't weigh any food, I just, you know, it's silly things like, well, I've said before, you eyeball things. So you go, okay, that's about that much protein, I've got some fat sources there, I've got some carbohydrates, I'll eat till I feel, you know, moderately full, or, you know, maybe a bit more full sometimes, and you can know that you've hit generally your targets. And then if you did have a bit more the next day, you could cut back a bit. There's ways to mediate it and live a life as well as being a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
I think like you said something really important there as well, Zoe, the sentence, I trust, you know, you trust yourself. I think that's so massive. And it's in both parts of this, in both the prep and in afterwards, because I think when you're in a prep, you get extremely self-critical and very like still razor sharp focused on every micro detail, because that's what you're effectively doing, right? We're weighing everything out, you're specifically training certain things, etc. So everything gets very polarized, like you're so hard on yourself throughout it. And I notice that pattern with a lot of my clients. You know, they start super excited, and then as we get through the prep, you know, they get more and more like down on themselves about, you know, small details. And part of the trusting of yourself in that process is to remember that you're working along people, or you can use support networks, etc., and work that out and believe in yourself that you're capable of actually achieving that goal. Yeah. And then on the flip side, like you just said, coming out, it's acceptance of what you've managed to achieve, being really, really grateful of that, and then putting all your energies into being this well-rounded post-show, into real life again, holidays, going out for your food and whatever else, and going, I can do this. It's going to be good. I believe in myself and trust myself. I feel my body. I'm in my own mind, and being grateful for the process, hopefully having a great achievement like you have as well, and coming away from that. And then the next bit, absolutely smashing that. Because that's where I think people, they lose themselves a little bit.
100%. And I couldn't have said it better. Trusting yourself is a huge thing. We should all be able to do it, whether around anything, and I think as bodybuilders in a general sense, we're very, very hard on ourselves. And as you said, you nitpick and throughout your prep, and, it's really hard to let that go, come the back of that. And, it's not easy to sit there and say, right, I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and I still make mistakes all the time. And I think it's just, again, not being hard on myself because I've had one really bad day. It's just going, right, okay, well, let's just move on from it. Like, tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah, it's definitely a night and day difference with the experience you get as well. Like you said earlier, Zoe, the first time you compete, you are almost quite neurotic and everything has to be to the letter. And then you realise, you can still do, but you can make it a little bit more enjoyable the second time you do it. And then it evolves from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I completely think that like when you come into a goal like bodybuilding, like a lot with some of my clients, I talk about like, what is this about for you? Because I think all of us should have leading like a good, healthy lifestyle at the top of our priority list before everything else, like before the bodybuilding goal, before whatever it is. And sometimes a lot of people come into bodybuilding not having that set yet. Does that make sense? And that's where things can spiral. But like the leading the good, healthy lifestyle, trusting yourself, understanding why this goal is important to you. What does it lead off the back of? Is it because you love training, or is it because you just really need a goal in a gym to always focus your intentions towards? Like, what actually is it? Because coming into the sport, bodybuilding's not easy, and it's not for everyone, and that's totally fine. But it's like understanding, well, what's it going to give to you and add to your goals and add to your health and well-being, and this understanding of fitness, and not detrimentally actually adversely affect that, because it does to a lot of people. So it can come at the end of a bodybuilding prep, like
and a prep is so different to what people would think of a diet. People adhere to a diet for X amount of time, but prep, you're really digging down into low body fat levels, and your body's just trying to almost hang in there, and then consequently your mind is almost doing the same. We spoke before coming on the pod about how you start sort of boxing off your day and thinking, right, I'll do this here, this here, this here, and then you realize a couple of weeks have gone by, and sometimes you're not as present as you would want to be or have been previously. And you're sort of at risk of almost your life passing you by. And a prep can be, could be up to 8 months, or it could be longer than that. If you qualify, like you said earlier, Zoe, if you were going to do the finals, you would have probably gone up to a maintenance and then back into a prep, so that's like a whole year.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the last prep I started in, I think it was like August last year, and didn't go on stage until April, and it was so long. And because before that it was kind of, so my whole journey has been prep, and then I came off the back of that, had a load of hormonal issues, had to basically fatten myself up to regain any form of hormonal health, so I felt rubbish about how I looked and how I felt, and almost neglected my life then, and then jumped straight into another prep. And I came off the back of that, and I said, oh, I'm gonna kind of chill out for a little bit, my friends were so excited to have me back. Like, I went to a festival with them the other week, and they literally could not have been happier that I was there with them. And it was really nice to see. And they have been like, my friends are amazing, they've been at every single one of my shows, like cheering my name, but at the same time they are so happy to have kind of an energetic Zoe back in their life, doing kind of fun things. And you know, I'm still, a lot of my friends still quite big drinkers. Bodybuilding for me changed that massively. You know, I don't drink loads. I like going out and having a drink or something with the girls, and I will, but I'm generally the person now that will go home at like 11 o'clock at night and let them all stay out until 3 a.m. But you know, it's just nice to even be there and present for the evening. So
yeah. There's so many things in a prep in particular that you do sort of not do, because you can't, you know, you've got to harvest your energies, you've got to do things every single day that contribute to you getting to the stage. And I think sometimes you forget that, and when you go into a prep, you maybe wouldn't consider that when you're a first time, and you think, oh, I can do everything. And it gets to the point where you have this sort of shock where you can't. And then, like you say, off the back of a prep, having up to 6 months, I don't think sometimes people understand the implications to regulating your hormones and what happens during a prep. It just seems to be sort of a cool thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, like those final phases of prep, whether your prep's been, I don't know, like a really hard push, or whether it's been totally plain sailing, getting lean is not comfortable.
Yeah,
it's just not. It's so uncomfortable. And I think sometimes, like, I have these conversations with my clients, and we talk about them in different ways. It's almost like a shock of, you know, I'm my sleep's disrupted all the time. The hunger pangs are really challenging, and sometimes it can be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some recent ones, just seeing and noticing poor skin, hair, nails, migraines, headaches, you know, all these like little things that don't happen all the time, but certainly your chances of those things increase. And that whole period is really uncomfortable. It's not meant to be nice, because your whole body is trying to tell you, don't do this, please. It's really uncomfortable for me. But for a show, it has to be done. That's where we're going towards that. And I think sometimes that's where we sort of see where mentally can people manage that, and where mentally do we need to take stock and go, this is really maybe not enjoyable for me, therefore I don't know whether I want to do that. And that's, again, another thing that should be really explored, because I think a lot of the time people feel like they're this far down the line, they should do it, but it shouldn't be at the detriment. If you're feeling horrendous and you hate it and you're like, what am I doing this for? You shouldn't do it. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, I also think that puts weight behind where people go into an off season and potentially take an extended period of time there, not only to restore health, but to restore relationships. And also, if you're then going to go back into a competitive season, I find if I have a good off season, George and I have spoken about this, Zoe, you know, at the end of the off season, going for some meals that you maybe wouldn't normally, having some really cool experiences. And then you're like, I really want to diet now. And then you've got that. If you've dieted before, you sort of know what to expect and you know what's coming, and you can put more efforts and energies into a prep. When you get this sort of serial prep behavior and off seasons, maybe 4 or 5 months, it's just not long enough.
No, not at all.
No, it's crazy.
I think as well that, like, see, you know, that it's like once you've done the first season and you've kind of gone through that first season, and then you get the experience of having the first proper off season, that's really exciting, because then you can make a kind of an objective decision on whether you want to go back through all that again, because you've also got this really positive experience that you've gone into, hopefully having gone through the post show and regained everything, you know, the way it should be. But I think that whole process then helps you decide, right, like you said, the stage is always there, but thinking, okay, well, where am I going to prioritize things for a bit and know I can come back to that, but it's not like left a scar on me, that horrible part of the prep, which was really hard, you know, and that you've got loads from it, and those skills of resilience that we talk about, Sarah, all the time on the pods, the actual real positives that you get from the prep, even though it's really tough, you learn so much about yourself throughout it, and into that show.
I think in off season as well, like, you know, when your health does restore and then you have this like light bulb moment, Christ, I was really not feeling too healthy in that prep.
Yeah. There you go. Oh,
you look back and think, oh my God. And then I really like it when I get to sort of, I guess, like 3 months into an off season, I'm like, oh, I feel really good about training. I actually having a bit of body fat, like you mentioned there, Zoe, you feel strong. You can actually perform in the gym, and then your zest for life is coming back. And there's so many more things you can get involved with, but you can still be on track and progressing as an athlete.
I remember literally the last few weeks I've been in the gym and I've had a few compliments, and the cleaner in my gym, bless her, I absolutely adore her. She came up to me, she goes, oh, you look so much better with a bit of meat on your bones. She goes, right, crackhead. And I literally, you just go, yeah, fair enough. I can't even argue with that. I was like, because you're right.
Yeah, for sure. Is your sort of focus at the moment still pushing up and seeing where that goes?
So at the moment, my number one focus is to feel happy within myself. And that is not a number on a scale. That is progressing in my lifts, eating food that is enough for me and not overfeeding. Like on and off season, if you've got that short window of time, you need to be pushing up food. I've done that and it was really uncomfortable and I didn't enjoy it. So considering I've not only got a year, I've got, could be 3 years, could be 4 years, could be 5 years. I'm not pushing anything because I just want to feel good within myself, be able to still go in the gym in a crop top and, and not feel like a lump and also not feel overly skinny. So
yeah, sure. Steff, you've mentioned before on the pod when you said, Zoe, about being wham, like I thought that's going to resonate with Steff because you like that sort of going into the gym, feeling powerful, lifting heavier, your performance is there and tracking that as a monitor of your progress rather than is my scale weight going down all the time?
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, like my whole passion for off season or life season or whatever you want to call it, like when you come away from the stage, is to get. So if you've ever listened to any of these pods before with Sarah, I've spoken about this. I am not a fan of this bulk phase. No. I don't do bulking. I don't think it's a good thing for females. I think it's a really negative term and I totally twist it on its head. And I think women need to prioritize how they want to feel, how they want to look in their own skin, regardless of what that, the progressions they need to make for body. Yeah, preach. Because
so nice to hear that. Yeah.
It's 364 days of the year, you're in your body, you need to feel good in that body. And that body doesn't need to be taking in 4,000 calories for the sake of gaining maybe 1.1 pound of a muscle for, the next show. That's putting so much pressure on yourself for something that, is going to take just so much out of your life and what you really want to achieve with your body, which is confidence and wanting to go in enough of a calorie surplus to lift heavy and enjoy your lifts, but in a comfortable, full, but, sexy, confident body. That's what we all want, us women, hopefully. Maybe some women don't, I don't know.
I generally find that if, the last time that I've done like a big bulk, I just felt rubbish. Like I didn't want to be in the gym. I felt uncomfortable. I hated every second of it. Whereas now, and actually I felt like my energy was terrible because I was sleepy from the amount of carbs I was eating.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like I think also your emotions, you're either like so one way or so the other. The brain can't like quite comprehend that, and there's no happy medium. And and there is nothing wrong with sitting in that happy medium and taking your time with it, because ultimately you've got one life and you need to be happy within it. And what's the point of being miserable because you either feel this term fluffy, which you hear all the time, or
I always say that, fluffy.
miserable on prep and tired,
Yeah, I mean, there's actual research and evidence-based scientific research out there that explains you do not need to be in an overarching calorie surplus in order to accrue tissue on the frame if you're executing training properly. So, there's a lot of this kind of trending, these kind of trend topics that fly through the fitness industry or trending words. And I almost think the bulking side of it's kind of got out of control a little bit, especially for females at least. And a guy can get away with eating a lot of food and looking buff and like bulky and put on a big baggy t-shirt and walk around a gym and feel like he's the strongest thing in the world. Like for us females, I think it's a complete opposite. I think I've seen women who have been put through that sort of bulking phase, if you want to call it, shrink in their confidence. Their cardiovascular fitness goes well down. They don't really want to look at themselves. Their body image issues start to crop up. I've seen so much more negativity around getting essentially overweight, because that's what it is, than keeping your body composition feeling pretty good in yourself, still, like you say, going into the gym and enjoying wearing a crop top or something like that makes them feel good when they're training, and building the same amount of tissue that they would with another 10 kilos on top of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I always used to say to George that we were kind of the last bulk that I did, he was quite heavily bulking as well. And I was just go, it's so unfair because you look like you go to the gym. And I just look fat. I was like, I don't look like I train at all.
Totally.
And I was like, I actually hate you for this.
Like you say, Steff, they put like a big, massive, baggy t-shirt and they look cool.
And they look cool and look full and they look muscular. But the thing is, they still look muscular. Let's be completely honest about this. We get overweight, even if you've got muscle. A lot of us females just do not. We don't look muscular. The way we just
not
look
at all.
Watery, full, a bit podgy.
And you feel, I always say, like, I feel like a marshmallow.
You know, and like, I know we're probably all being like OTT about it, but there is some truth in it. I think, like, you know, if you just take biology as a female bodies are childbearing creatures. They need fat in those areas. They need fat around all of those internal organs. They need the hormonal functionings for menarche and for child's, you know, conception and all of that to be well up. Your boobs are going to get massive. Your hips, your all of that area is going to get a lot bigger because it generally is where we need to carry our fat stores for optimal human female performance. That's kind of like a lot of these things are going to happen. So there's natural occurrences going on there why we sort of store fat and look the way we do, but it is a bit annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, again, it puts weight behind having a longer period for a sort of growth phase or an off season, or, you know, whatever term we would use. If you've got longer, you can steadily creep calories up, you know, see where you sit. You can hit a point where you feel quite good about the calories you're having, and it might be that your weight's slowly ticking up, you're feeling good in the gym, you're restoring your relationship with food, with training, all of those different things. And then if you want to push up a bit more, you can. Whereas if you've only got this short period of time, like you mentioned earlier, Zoe, it's like, I've got to push up in 4 months, and it's just so much pressure. And then you get to these extreme levels all the time. You're never really sitting at any normality.
And I mean, you're making prep harder as well.
Yeah,
like, so much harder.
Yeah, because your starting point is going to be miles away from where you need to be, and then just the actual stress on the body, the central nervous system, to try and get that amount of weight off in a shorter time frame. You're just setting yourself up for a very, very challenging fat loss phase. Hugely.
That's what I quite like about working with Tom. We've got, like, you know, we've got this year planned, and then we've got the reverse out planned, and then what we want to do and we've started talking about all of that already, rather than, like, you know, it's just let's focus on the prep, and it's like, well, where do I go after that? It's really nice to start maybe thinking about what you're going to do off the back of a show, and dealing with what the thought processes might be when you come off the back of a show, which is, I know George helped you with that, Zoe, which is super, super cool, because often people don't have that. You know, it can be quite isolating, this sport.
Yeah, 100%. I remember my first coach, I literally just got a reverse diet. There was no timeline, no progress, whereas George is like very timeline orientated. He's like, right, where's the goal from here? How long is it going to take? You know, what are we doing? And I think just the slower the better.
I always have this sort of, obviously I work predominantly with natural athletes, but I have this year on, year off theory. You know, if you're someone who, if you really enjoy bodybuilding, you sort of think, right, this is something I want to continue to do, and you want to be competitive, you want to be good at this, you know, you've got to be strategic. Muscle building for females is very hard. Muscle building in general is very hard, unless you are applying, you know, like an athlete mindset, 100% consistency all of the time. So therefore, time is your biggest commodity, and you need that space to be able to really go away, make those improvements, and come back. And have had the things we're discussing on this podcast, have found balance, have got hormones back to where they are. Like you started, Zoe, by saying, you know, off the back of, I'm not sure if you said it was your first prep or your last prep, that to get your body back to a happy place, it's taken you nearly a year, you know.
It was after my first prep. Exactly,
right. So if you think about that, And I've been in that situation as well, where I've had quite severe preps and it's taken me a good 6 to 8 months for me to get back to Steff, what I know is Steff, you know what I mean? That's nearly a whole year. And then you're in a happy place to then start actually going, hell yeah, I want to train, I want to do this, I want to do that. So that then brings up the question of how realistic are these mini bulks or push-ups or, you know, what we need to do here or there? And realistically, should we actually all be thinking more, done my season, now I go to work. And if the drive and desire is there after a year and you know, your coach, something I do is physique analysis at points during the off season, have a look at the frame. Have we built enough tissue here? Or do we feel like we're going in the right direction? Then at that point, when you do the physique assessment later down the line, you go, yeah, we're good to go. Let's, if your mindset's there, let's go again. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think first timers can get away with doing back-to-back preps because you can gather more data. I think as you get further into this, you really need to think like, are you willing to give up year after year after year of social events and, you know, all the things that we talk about here, how much you have to sacrifice to do it?
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. I think we're probably all very similar. When you're in a prep, you know, you don't see it as a sacrifice, as it were, but you are sacrificing certain things. But because this is a choice and we want to, you know, do this sport and take part and compete, you sort of just go into prep and then it's automatically, okay, the next 6 months, I'm not going out, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. But you can negotiate it. And with experience, you can still do things like you said, Zoe, you go out with friends, but you might go home at 11 and only have one drink. You know, there's certain things you can do, but it does take a bit of strength as well and a bit of ownership as to what you're putting into the sport and trying to communicate that with people, you know, being confident. Okay, this is what I need to do. I can still come out for a few hours, but I'm not going to come out for the whole time. But that's quite hard in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But I think it's really nice to speak to other people that, you know, don't have this all or nothing kind of mindset and, you know, do
like us.
and do the balance there, you know.
It's so alien when you're in a prep, isn't it? Because you become so tunnel visioned and everything's so regimented, and then when you see people that are sort of just living life, it's like, I wonder what that would be like. And then when you do it in an off season and you start to learn these normal life skills,
okay, that's what it's like.
Oh, okay, so I can like go out. Yeah, like the first time you don't track food for a day, it's like, this is really uncomfortable. But then I find like after a few days, I'm like, this is quite nice.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's so cool. Do you find living with George and him doing a prep, like seeing him do that, do you think I was like that in a prep? Do you have sort of moments like that?
Yeah, 100%. Like I just sit there and I'm like, he's so, I don't know another man that is quite as anal as George, and he's one of
I'm pretty sure I know one.
Oh really?
Her partner's in prep.
Oh, and so me and George are I'm kind of the person that, you know, will live life a bit more freely. Because George is a coach, as he said, he is one of those people that likes his routine and this is what he does, and I'm a bodybuilder through and through, you know.
Like, yeah.
So I sit and watch him and I commend that, like, fair enough, that's how he wants to live his life. I will always forever and support and love him for that, you know, and he will love and support me for doing what I do as well. But it's like he now is very, very anal about everything, and I'm like, oh, it's cute.
I'm off out for an Ando, see you in a bit.
Yeah, I'm like going out with the girls. I'll see you later, hon.
How does it feel that he's competing this weekend?
I think I said to him earlier, I said, however you're nervous you're feeling, I'm feeling twice as nervous. Like my mum, bless her, every time, like, doesn't matter whether it was a dance show, going on stage, she'd always say to me, like, I am so nervous for you. Like, however you're feeling, I'm twice as nervous, and I'm feeling how she feels now. I'm like, I understand that feeling that my mum used to say to me when I was a kid. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's hard, isn't it? Because you see what goes into it when you're living with a bodybuilder and prepping, and you never know what's going to happen from a show. As we've said before, Steff, it's a subjective sport. You never really know what the judges are looking for. Obviously, there's set criteria of every federation and what have you.
Yeah.
But judges have, you know, certain preferences and they're looking for certain things within the category. So it's really hard on the people supporting to see someone up on stage. And it's like, Mum, she thinks I should win every show, and I'm like, Mum, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. I know, exactly. It is hard. I think it's a funny one, bodybuilding. It's like you put so much into it, and it's a minefield, isn't it? Like the roller coaster of emotions going into a show, how the outcome of the show happens, whether you win, whether you don't. Your supporters, of course, are there fully for you. And I echo what you've just said, Zoe. It's like you're way more stressed for other people than you are for yourself. It's a different kind of stress. It's like, I don't know, it's just absolute will for them to get what they want. You know what I mean? It's
you
like,
just want them to do so well, because you know how much, like, I know how much Josh deserves to be up there, and I'd love to see him win because he really deserves it in my eyes. But the sun shines out of his arsehole, so you know.
I know. I mean, like, this is it. I feel the same for my clients as well. I think, like, you're so fully invested in their journey, and then you're like, I don't know if they even know what it's like for you from a coaching perspective, because you're just like, every detail that you know, how they've performed through it, how they've managed it, the ups and downs, things that have gone through it. You know, we've all got our backstory, don't we? And I just think it's like, then when they're on stage, it's like all there displayed, and you know it because you've been through everything they have. So it's more than just the competition. You know what I mean? It's like, it's about everything that they've kind of done to get to this point and gone through. And I think that's what's quite emotional about it, is just that whole combination of just all of it, all of the ups and downs, and celebrating how hard they've worked. Is a pretty amazing thing. But yeah, living with a guy who is as anal as your partner, I get it. I fully get it. I've got one in the house right now who's well, not right this second, but he's prepping as well, and he's 3 weeks out from his not first show. He's doing a guest spot first, then he's doing shows after that. But yeah, I'm so used to prepping with him at the same time. This is the first time I've not. It's very interesting for me.
Seeing like the behaviors and things like that, I bet it's quite interesting, and then relating that back to your own journey when you're prepping.
It's just weird, not because, like, when you're so used to prepping with someone, I think it can either be really hard or it can be quite good, because you're both so again, you're both so routine and you're both doing your thing, so you're not really going out and eating together, or you're not really doing other things. You're just doing that. Whereas this time I've sort of taken I'm obviously doing my thing, but really taking a sort of interest in looking at the whole process. And it's been quite amazing for me, because Andrew is that. He's dot the I's, cross the T's. There is not a thing out of line. Not a thing.
I don't know about you, but I always feel like if I go out, I'm like, are you going to be okay? Like, I feel so leaving, because I know that he's just going to be sat there like miserable and hungry and tired. And I'm like, do you need me? Like, are you okay? I'm not a child. You can go. I'm like, all right.
I'll just lay here hungry.
I'll just lay here and die. It's fine.
So do you think you will go back to the stage, Zoe, or you're not sure at the moment?
I think I love it too much not to. But I just want to be able to give back to kind of the people and the work and everything that I haven't had the time or energy to be able to. And, you know, it's like I said to I love the bikini criteria. I love the bikini class. You know, I think my physique very much suits it. But my favorite category is always the over 35s in bikini. I just like the muscle maturity there. I think is beautiful. And I am quite happy to wait until then. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the class I love the most. And or, you know, seeing how far my physique goes in, say, 4 years time, when I do feel that I want to go back to the stage, you know, I might not be bikini by then, you know, I might have to go upper class. So it's just seeing kind of where life takes me, and, you know, when I'm ready, I'll jump in again, because I love it too much not to. And I will always live this life, you know. I really enjoy training, you know. I love the structure of it, and also living with a coach, and I'm about to get married to a coach, so I'm gonna have to kind of stay in this game for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. What a great way to sort of sum it up. Enjoying bodybuilding. This is, like I said, this is a choice. We're in a privileged position to be able to even consider doing this, and there's so much enjoyment that can come from it. Okay, at the tail end of a prep, it does get harder, but you can still enjoy things during a day, and it doesn't take away from the whole of your life if you can merge the two, but it does take a bit of time.
Yeah, this is why I always say to people, I say, like, are you enjoying this? If even when you are that tired and that depleted, you might feel like crap, but at the same time, you're not absolutely hating it, because you've got that end goal and you know where you want to be and you know what you want to be doing. It doesn't mean, just because it's hard doesn't mean you hate it. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with, like we said about the off seasons, and feeling really uncomfortable within yourself. And I think a lot of people need to ask themselves, are you enjoying this process? Are you enjoying how you feel right now? Because that should be everyone's ultimate goal. What is the point in being unhappy? If you're not, things need to change.
Yeah, isn't that it's pretty much what we always preach, pretty much every pod, Steff and I. It's like,
100%.
But I think a lot of people don't, and no. In the industry there are so many people that in this whole like no one cares, work harder kind of environment that we're in, and it's rubbish. It's like, no, if don't get me wrong, if that's how you want to live, go for it. Do you know what I mean? But 95% of us that are in this game do not want to be like that. And do you?
You don't need to be either, do you? You don't need to, look, me and George joke, and we're like, are you going to war? It's like, you're not actually going to war. If you had a day at war, it's very different to a bodybuilding prep. Let's put some context behind it.
Exactly. I mean, that's it. The thing you just said there, I had this conversation with Andrew the other night, like perspective. We've got to have perspective. Like, we all, I think we all get kind of lost in this idea that like it's all about just this one tiny thing that we're doing here, and how, if we just take out stock for a moment and we just think about like the world that we're actually in at the moment, like, and that just think about like what's going on. We've got a Ukraine war, we've just come through COVID, house prices and like electricity and everything else is going up through the roof. People's like living situation is really intense, fuel crisis, like there's so much going on like in our world, not to put like a crazy downer on the end of the podcast, but like there is so much like going on. We should be grateful for just choosing to be able to do this. If you're in the ability to be able to do it, I know it's going to be hard and loads of it's going to be difficult, and that's okay. But if 80% of this is you're actually really enjoying this process, then don't be a martyr about it. Don't be like exactly what you've just said, like that horrible kind of like do or die mentality. Like if you don't get that 4th rep or whatever, you failed. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like perspective is everything. And if you're giving it as 98%, then give yourself that little bit of a pat on the back and say like, you're doing really well here. You love it. So just
right back to the start where Zoe said, be a bit kind to yourself. It is hard when you're in an aesthetic based sport. It's tough because you're being judged in your most exposed position, I guess. When you're up on that stage, all eyes on you, hardly any clothes on, you're really pushing yourself physically and mentally. It's a hard sport, but if you can take enjoyment from that whole journey and realize what you're achieving every single day, it just puts weight behind it, and it makes it so much more cathartic. And growth mindset, self-evolution, just feeling good about yourself.
It's like, so it is, because you can as well in the bodybuilding prep, you can teach yourself, if you're in an environment like you've just mentioned there, Zoe, if you're around people or in an environment or in a gym that's quite downtrodden, like quite negative, and we've all been to those sorts of gyms, like where it's just a kind of that, again, back to that sort of negative mindset of all or nothing. It's just not, again, it's not real. I can't describe it. It's like not a real mindset to have, and it can actually negatively impact other areas of your life if you get too entrenched in that. You start to sort of see yourself behaving and acting in different ways. And I've been around loads of people who've kind of got so sucked into that and then taken a step out like a year down the line and gone, that was a really toxic environment I was in.
Toxic, I think that's kind of the word. You know, and it's not a very nice environment to be in, and it's not a good place to be, and other people will see you be like that and be like, it's rubbish. I know personally, there's, funny enough, off the back of my last prep, I unfollowed quite a lot of people on Instagram because I was like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see this squeaky clean, I hit everything 100%, because like, that's not life. Like,
it's not.
Life does not go 100%. Like that is what it is. And you know, and I shouldn't feel pressured as a competitor to live my life like how it should, like that 100%, all or nothing. You know, there is so much more to life than just being that person, you know. And I had to get rid of it because I was like, I don't even want to look at it because it's just toxic.
Yeah, and I think if anyone can take something away from what you've just said and what we've just said at the end of this, it's remembering that like bodybuilding can be done in a lot of different ways. Like it doesn't have to be just that sort of one almost like bro mentality. I think like we've come so far away from that, luckily, with the likes of having websites and social media and new people like discovering ways of, you know, approaching preps. But the healthy mindset through a prep and the focusing on the positives should be so much more spoken about, and you know, that kind of positive, exciting enjoyment of a prep and a journey, rather than this, you failed if you don't hit your macros on and you're this and you're that and all of that. I think it's just a very toxic way of thinking about this that you can get stuck into. But it can also, I think a lot of people get stuck into that or kind of drawn into that. And I am going to pinpoint more males here, but I think more males get drawn into that as well because it's quite cool. And it's like
being a bro.
It's cool. It's like, fuck yeah, I am fucking on it. I am a machine. I am this, I am that. And it's that kind of mentality, which fair enough has its place. Let's be honest, has its place every now and again. But I don't know. I just think a lot of young, naive people coming into this can lose themselves a little bit in that and not see actually the positives that they can get from this, unless they've got positive mentors and people around them or listening to other stuff that's like, don't just be that. Also think at the other side of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's trying to sort of, I guess, move in different networks and find what suits you, because I think sometimes in bodybuilding people would see it from the outside of this like neurotic, crazy sport, and we're all this different breed of people. But there are people like ourselves that try and have, you know, more flexibility in the off season, try and approach things differently, you know, being open to, every prep I've done has been slightly different. It doesn't have to be uniform, like you say. You know, you've said, Zoe, you learn your body the more you prep. When you come out the back of a show for the second time, you reverse out slightly differently. You're more comfortable to push up a bit quicker. It's all that journey, that evolution of yourself and learning yourself and trusting yourself. And enjoying the process, enjoying this, because we are privileged to do this, aren't we, ladies?
We'll enjoy it at least 90% of the time, and then the other 20% you're allowed your cry and your moan. That's okay.
You're in the trenches. Thank you for coming on, Zoe. It's been super cool to get you on the pod. Like I said at the start, I've been wanting to get you on for a while because it's really interesting to hear the transition away from stage and going into the more hobby building approach, because like I say, it's much more of interest now. So super cool to get your insights, and I think a lot of our listeners will take a lot from this, especially first timers. You know, a lot of people are going into their first show at this time of year, so it's gonna be super useful for them as well. If anyone wanted to reach out to you or follow you on Instagram, what is your Instagram handle?
So it's just Zoe K Thompson.
Cool, because sometimes we get listeners that will listen and sort of share on our stories and this sort of thing, and it just helps us to get the word out, and people listening to the pod, we really appreciate anyone sharing or sending us messages. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.
And have a good rest of the evening, ladies. Enjoy the process.
Peace, guys. See you soon.